Christmas Eve. No bells. Just cold wind and bullets cutting through the air. 12 Navy SEALs trapped in a demolished street. Christmas lights dangling from burnt-out buildings like forgotten prayers. Radio silence, no support, no extraction order. Command had pulled us out. Nobody finished the sentence. Everyone understood. Then, above, across the frost-covered rooftops, a woman set down her rifle on the ledge. She checked her watch. 90 seconds, and she decided to spit on the order. The city had been beautiful once. Lieutenant Lucas Thorne could still see traces of it through the smoke and rubble. Garlands hung from shattered storefronts. A plastic Santa lay face down in a crater, one arm reaching toward nothing. The streets were paved with broken glass that caught the moonlight like scattered diamonds. It was 23:47 hours on December 24th, 7 minutes until Christmas. Thorne's team, Bravo 4, had rolled into the Eastern District 3 hours ago. The briefing had been clean, simple, a quick sweep and clear operation. Intelligence reported a small weapons cache in a residential block. Get in, secure the ordnance, get out, home before Santa. 30 seconds to checkpoint Bravo, whispered Lieutenant Ethan Cole through the comms, his breath visible in the freezing air. Thorne nodded, even though Cole couldn't see him in the dark. The team moved like shadows through the ruined street. 12 men, the best the Navy had trained. Each one had survived selection rates that would break ordinary soldiers. Each one had earned the trident. They reached the corner building. Thorne raised his fist. The team froze. Something was wrong. The intelligence had called this area minimal resistance, but Thorne counted 7 heat signatures on his thermoscope. Then 12. Then 20. Command, this is Bravo 4. Thorne spoke into his radio, voice low and controlled. We have visual on approximately 20 hostiles at checkpoint Bravo. Requesting clarification on intel assessment. Static crackled through the line. Bravo 4, stand by for confirmation. More static. Specialist Leo Mendez moved up beside Thorne. His rifle trained on the building ahead. At 23, Mendez was the youngest on the team. This was his second deployment. He still had a picture of his girlfriend taped inside his helmet. Feels off, sir, Mendez murmured. Thorne agreed. 20 years of combat had given him an instinct that screamed louder than any briefing document. This wasn't a weapons cache. This was a fortress. The radio crackled again. Bravo 4 confirmed. Proceed with mission parameters. Thorne hesitated. Every nerve in his body said no. But orders were orders. He'd followed them through Fallujah, through Ramadi, through countless operations that had seemed impossible until they weren't. He signaled the advance. They moved in tactical formation through the skeleton of what had been someone's home. Family photos still clung to one wall. A child's drawing. A Christmas tree drawn in crayon presents underneath. Mendez was the first to spot the trip wire. Wait. The explosion came from everywhere at once, not from the wire, from the buildings surrounding them. RPG fire lit up the night like hellish fireworks. Tracer rounds carved red lines through the darkness. The air filled with the metallic screech of bullets ricocheting off stone and steel. Ambush. Fall back. Cole's order was drowned out by a second explosion. The building to their left collapsed, cutting off their planned exit route. Dust and debris filled the street like a sandstorm. Thorne counted his men through the chaos. All 12 still moving. All 12 still fighting, but they were completely surrounded. Command, this is Bravo 4. Thorne shouted into his radio, pressing himself against a concrete barrier as bullets chewed up the space where he'd been standing seconds before. We are taking heavy fire. Multiple hostiles. We need immediate air support and extraction. Static. Then a voice. Calm. Bureaucratic. Bravo 4, stand by. Stand by. As if they had requested a weather update. Sergeant Samuel Drake threw himself behind the barrier next to Thorne, breathing hard. At 38, Drake was the oldest man on the team. 3 kids back home. He'd shown Thorne pictures before they left base, all 3 in matching Christmas pajamas. They knew we were coming, Drake said, changing magazines with practiced efficiency. This was planned. Thorne knew Drake was right. This wasn't an ambush, this was an execution. Bravo 4. This is command. The voice in Thorne's ear was different now. Higher authority. Colonel someone. Thorne didn't catch the name through the noise. We have a situation. A situation. 12 men trapped in a kill zone. And command called it a situation. We need extraction. Now, Thorne emphasized each word. Negative on extraction. Bravo 4. Political situation has changed. Host government is threatening an international incident if we escalate. You are ordered to hold position and await further instruction. Thorne's blood went cold. Colder than the December air, freezing the sweat on his face. Command, we cannot hold this position. We are surrounded and exposed. Orders stand. Bravo 4. Do not engage unless absolutely necessary. Minimize noise. Extraction will come when situation permits. The line went dead. Mendez looked at Thorne, young eyes wide behind his night vision goggles. Sir? Thorne didn't answer. He was listening to a different sound now, the distant thump of rotors. Extraction birds, flying away from their position. Cole crawled over, blood running from a cut on his forehead. They're leaving us. It wasn't a question. Corporal Daniel Kim, their comm specialist, was frantically working his equipment. I'm trying to reach anyone else. Backup frequency. Anything. Nothing came through but static. Drake methodically checked his ammunition. 4 magazines left. Maybe 200 rounds against an enemy that had spent hours preparing this trap. We dig in, Thorne said, his voice carrying the authority that had kept men alive through worse odds. We're SEALs. We hold until we can break out. But even as he said it, he saw the calculation in every man's eyes. The math was simple and brutal. 12 men surrounded. No support. No extraction. The enemy fire intensified. They were getting bolder now, moving closer, testing the perimeter. Young Mendez flinched as a bullet sparked off the concrete inches from his head. His hand went to his helmet, to the picture inside. It's Christmas, he whispered. So quietly Thorne almost didn't hear it over the gunfire. It was 23:53 hours. 7 minutes until the day they'd all thought they'd spend with their families. 7 minutes until 12 Navy SEALs realized their own command had traded them for political convenience. Thorne keyed his radio one more time. Command, this is Bravo 4 requesting immediate support. We have men down. Bravo 4, you are ordered to maintain radio silence. Acknowledge. Thorne closed his eyes. 20 years. 20 years of perfect service. Of following orders even when they made no sense. Of trusting the chain of command. Acknowledged. He said the word. It tasted like ash. His men settled into defensive positions. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. They all understood what was happening. Christmas lights blinked on and off in the rubble around them. Red, green, gold, colors of celebration in a place where 12 men had just been marked for death by the people they'd sworn to serve. Somewhere in the darkness, enemy fighters were organizing for a final push. And somewhere above, watching it all, someone else was making a very different calculation. The command center was 8,000 miles away from the kill zone. Fluorescent lights, climate control, fresh coffee. Colonel James Blackwood stood before a wall of monitors, watching thermal images of 12 men about to die. His coffee had gone cold in his hand an hour ago. He hadn't noticed. Sir, the extraction birds are clear of the hot zone, reported a junior officer whose name Blackwood had forgotten. Confirmed. All assets accounted for. Yes, sir. All primary assets. Primary assets. Not the 12 men still fighting for their lives on screen 6. Blackwood had been making difficult decisions for 30 years. He'd sent men into danger knowing some wouldn't return. That was war. That was command. You played the odds and sometimes the house won, but this wasn't war. This was politics. 3 hours ago, the host government had made contact through back channels. They knew about the operation. They had surveillance footage of American forces entering sovereign territory. They were threatening to release it to international media unless all American personnel withdrew immediately. The math was simple. A general had explained it to Blackwood. 12 men, or a strategic alliance worth billions. 12 men, or military bases that protected an entire region. 12 men, or geopolitical stability. Simple math. Blackwood stared at the monitor. Thorne was visible, coordinating his men with the efficiency that had earned him 3 Bronze Stars. Drake was treating someone's wound while maintaining his defensive position. Mendez. God, Mendez was just a kid. He was methodically returning fire. Each shot placed with precision despite the fear that must be flooding his system. Update from State Department. Another officer announced. They've confirmed the government will consider the situation resolved once all American presence is withdrawn from the Eastern District. All American presence. They meant when the SEALs were dead. Sir. The junior officer was waiting for orders. Blackwood knew what he was supposed to say. He'd already said it once, ordering the extraction birds to abort. He'd already told Thorne to hold position, which was a polite way of telling 12 men to die quietly. Now, he was supposed to cut communications entirely. Make it clean. Let the enemy fighters finish the job. By morning, it would be a tragic loss during an unsanctioned operation. Plausible deniability all around. His hand moved toward the communication controls. On screen 6, Mendez was changing magazines. The kid's hands were shaking, but he got the mag locked in on the first try. Training overriding terror. Blackwood's hand stopped. Sir, the directive was clear, the junior officer said carefully. We're supposed to. I know what we're supposed to do, Blackwood snapped. But knowing and doing were different countries. 24 hours ago, Blackwood had stood in front of these same screens watching intelligence footage of the Eastern District. The target building had been marked. The mission had seemed straightforward. He'd approved it himself. Now he understood. The intelligence had been provided by the host government. They'd known exactly where the Americans would send their men. They prepared the ambush with precision, then activated their political pressure at exactly the right moment. Bravo 4 wasn't on a rescue mission. They were bait. Bait in a trap designed to embarrass the United States. Dead SEALs would be found in sovereign territory, proof of American aggression, or live SEALs would be captured, paraded before cameras, forced to apologize for violating international law. Either way, the host government won, unless Blackwood changed the game. Get me the Secretary of Defense, he said. Sir, the directive came from, I know where it came from. Get me the Secretary, now. The junior officer hesitated, then moved to comply. Blackwood watched his screens. The enemy was repositioning, setting up for a final assault. They had time, resources, numerical advantage. They could afford to be methodical. Bravo 4 had maybe 20 minutes before being overrun. The secretary's face appeared on a secure monitor, distinguished, tired. It was already Christmas morning in Washington. This better be urgent, Colonel. Sir, I'm requesting permission to re-engage extraction for Bravo 4. A long pause. That operation has been terminated. You received the directive. I did, sir. I'm requesting authorization to ignore it. Another pause. Longer. Dangerous. You understand what you're asking. The political ramification. I understand 12 men are about to be killed because we traded them for a photo opportunity, sir. The secretary's face hardened. Watch your tone, Colonel. Yes, sir. My tone is insubordinate. My request stands. On the peripheral screens, Blackwood could see staff officers backing away from him. Career suicide had a blast radius. The secretary leaned forward. Even if I granted this, which I'm not saying I am, how would you extract them? The airspace is compromised. The government has threatened to engage any American aircraft. Then we go in dark, low approach, fast extraction, in and out before anyone can respond. And if they do respond, if we lose a bird, if this turns into a genuine firefight, then we have a genuine firefight, sir. Better than leaving SEALs to die, because we're afraid of bad press. The secretary's eyes narrowed. You're willing to bet your career on this? My career's already over, sir. I gave the abort order. I told those men to hold position while we abandoned them. I'll carry that for the rest of my life. The question is whether I carry 12 deaths, too. Silence. Then you have 20 minutes, Colonel. If you can get them out in 20 minutes, I'll handle the political fallout. But if this goes wrong, you'll be the one explaining to Congress why you started an international incident. Understood, sir. The screen went dark. Blackwood turned to his staff. Bring the extraction birds back around. Low approach from the north. Prepare for hot extraction. Sir, the abort order is rescinded. Move. The command center erupted into controlled chaos. Flight paths recalculated, pilots contacted, risk assessments ignored. Blackwood watched screen 6. Thorne and his men had no idea help was coming. For all they knew, they'd been written off, sacrificed, forgotten. 20 minutes. The enemy assault would begin in 15. Blackwood reached for his coffee, realized it was cold, drank it anyway. The bitter taste seemed appropriate. But even as orders went out, even as the extraction birds banked hard and began their approach, Blackwood noticed something on screen 12, a rooftop 6 blocks from Bravo 4's position, a thermal signature that hadn't been there before. A single person taking position with what looked like a long rifle. Who is that? Blackwood asked, pointing at the screen. The intelligence officer checked his roster. No friendly forces in that sector, sir. Could be enemy sniper. Then why isn't she? Blackwood paused. The thermal signature's posture was all wrong for an enemy. The positioning was wrong. The sight lines were wrong. This wasn't someone preparing to shoot at the SEALs. This was someone preparing to shoot for them. Get me identification on that rooftop position, Blackwood ordered. Sir, the extraction timeline. Do it now. As his staff scrambled, Blackwood leaned closer to screen 12. The thermal signature wasn't moving. Just watching, calculating, waiting. For what? The communications officer looked up, confused. Sir, we're pulling up recent deployment logs for that sector. There's a flag here. What kind of flag? A personnel file was accessed 3 hours ago. Specialist Elena Cross. Sniper qualified. Currently listed as non-operational due to disciplinary review. Blackwood felt something cold settle in his stomach. What disciplinary review? 2 months ago. She defied a direct order during an operation in the northern provinces, engaged enemy targets despite being ordered to stand down. No casualties on our side, but command initiated proceedings for insubordination. Where is she supposed to be right now? Base holding, sir. Awaiting board review. Blackwood looked at screen 12. The thermal signature adjusted her rifle position slightly. Professional. Precise. That's not someone awaiting review, Blackwood said quietly. The communications officer's face went pale. Sir, if she's actually in that sector, if she's armed and in position without authorization, she's been watching this whole time. Blackwood finished the thought. She knew. Somehow she knew we'd abandoned them. And she went anyway, without orders, without authorization, without backup. One woman with a rifle, taking position to save 12 men the command had already written off. Blackwood keyed a different channel. All stations, new parameter. We have possible unauthorized friendly in overwatch position. Do not engage thermal signature on grid reference. He read off the coordinates from screen 12. Repeat, do not engage that position. Sir, should we contact her? Order her to stand down? Blackwood washed the thermal signature. Steady, calm, a sniper in total control. 2 months ago, she disobeyed orders to save lives. Command had decided that was worth punishment. Now, she was about to do it again. No, Blackwood said. We don't contact her. We don't give her orders she'll ignore anyway. But sir, she's already made her choice, and given what we just did to Bravo 4, I'm not sure we have any moral authority to stop her. On screen 6, the enemy began their final approach. On screen 12, Alina Cross settled into firing position, and somewhere between those two screens, between Command's abandonment and one woman, defiance, the question that would haunt Blackwood for years began to form. Who actually wore the uniform with honor tonight? The rooftop was 6 stories up. Concrete and frost in absolute clarity. Alina Cross had been here for 47 minutes. She'd chosen this position 3 hours ago, during her last unauthorized review of operational intelligence. The access codes hadn't been changed yet. A bureaucratic oversight, lucky for her, fatal for whoever had forgotten to revoke her clearance. The building gave her sight lines across 7 city blocks. Most importantly, it gave her a perfect view of Checkpoint Bravo, where 12 men were about to die. She'd known this was coming, not the specifics, not the exact timing, but she'd seen enough of these operations to recognize the pattern. A mission that made no tactical sense, intelligence that seemed too convenient, a target in a location that offered perfect ambush opportunities. Someone had wanted SEALs in that kill zone. Someone had made sure they'd walk right into it. And when the trap closed, Command had done exactly what Alina had known they would do. They'd calculated the cost. They'd weighed the options. They'd chosen the path that protected institutions instead of individuals. They'd left 12 men to die. Alina had made a different calculation. Her rifle was a precision system equipped with thermal optics and a suppressor that reduced her acoustic signature to nearly nothing. 17 rounds in the magazine, 1 in the chamber, 18 shots to change the outcome of what Command had decided was acceptable losses. The wind was minimal. Temperature had dropped to 28 degrees Fahrenheit. Range to target zone, 640 meters, well within her capability. She'd logged over 3,000 confirmed shots at this range during qualification. Her accuracy rating was 97%. Tonight, 97% wouldn't be enough. Tonight, she needed perfect. Her radio earpiece crackled with Command frequency. She hadn't removed it, wanted to hear what they were saying, wanted to know exactly how they justified this. Bravo 4, maintain position. Extraction postponed due to airspace complications. Airspace complications. Polite words for political cowardice. Alina zoomed her scope, scanning the enemy positions. She counted 43 fighters. More than initial estimates. They'd been reinforcing while Command wasted time with diplomatic channels. The fighters were organized, well-equipped. This wasn't militia. This was trained military pretending to be insurgents, probably the host government's own special forces dressed in civilian clothes to maintain plausible deniability. Smart. Effective. Absolutely ruthless. Alina could respect the tactical efficiency even as she prepared to destroy it. Her earpiece crackled again. Different voice. Higher authority. All stations be advised. Bravo 4 operation is now classified as terminated. No further support authorized. Air assets are RTB. Return to base. Alina's jaw clenched. RTB meant the extraction birds were flying away. Meant Command was officially abandoning the SEALs to whatever fate the enemy had planned. In her scope, she could see Thorne coordinating his men. Even at this distance, even through thermal imaging, she could read the tension in his movements. He knew, they all knew. Command had sold them out. Her radio crackled one more time. Attention all sniper positions. You are ordered to maintain observation only. Do not engage. Repeat. Do not engage enemy targets. Political situation requires minimal American footprint. Acknowledge. Alina's finger hovered over the transmit button. This was the moment. The clean choice. Acknowledge the order. Keep her head down. Let the SEALs die professionally and quietly. Go back to base. Survive the disciplinary review. Maybe keep her career. Or she could do what she'd done 2 months ago. What had gotten her flagged for insubordination. What had saved 4 lives and destroyed her military record. She could ignore the order. She could take the shot. She thought about the last time. Northern provinces. 4 Marines pinned down by enemy fire. Command had ordered her to maintain position, not wanting to escalate, wanting to negotiate, wanting to avoid an incident. Alina had watched through her scope as the enemy moved closer, as the Marines ran out of ammunition, as Command debated diplomatic options while 4 men bled out in a ditch. She'd taken the shot. 7 shots. Actually, 7 enemy fighters. 7 perfect hits. The Marines had escaped. Alina had been immediately pulled from field operations and flagged for court-martial. The investigator had been blunt. You directly violated explicit orders. Lives saved doesn't excuse insubordination. Alina had been equally blunt. If following orders means watching Americans die, then I am insubordinate. The court-martial had been pending for 2 months. Her career was already over. Her future in the military was a closed door. But those 4 Marines were alive. Tonight the calculation was the same. 12 lives, or her obedience. Alina reached up and pulled the radio earpiece from her ear. The voice from Command cut off mid-sentence. Gone. Whatever orders they were about to give, whatever justifications they were preparing, she wouldn't hear them. She was done listening to people who valued politics over people. Her watch showed 23:58 hours, 2 minutes until Christmas. In the kill zone below, the enemy was moving into final position. She could see them communicating, coordinating. They'd attack at midnight. Symbolic. Poetic. 12 Americans killed on Christmas morning. The news cycle would be vicious. The diplomatic fallout would be carefully managed. The SEALs would be buried with honors and classified reports, unless... Elena checked her sight picture. Adjusted for wind. Calculated ballistic drop. Confirmed her ranges to priority targets. 90 seconds. That's what she'd need. 90 seconds of perfect shooting. 90 seconds to clear the sight lines. Eliminate the key threats. Create an opening for the SEALs to break out. 90 seconds to spit in the face of every order, every regulation, every command structure that had decided 12 lives weren't worth the political inconvenience. Her fingers settled on the trigger. Not yet. Not yet. She needed them to commit. Needed the enemy to fully expose themselves in the final assault. One chance. Had to count. The cold wind bit at her face. Her breath came out in small, controlled clouds. Her heartbeat slowed. 60 beats per minute. Combat calm. The state where time stretched and everything became clear. She'd been trained for this. Years of discipline. Thousands of hours on ranges. Hundreds of simulations. All designed to create a soldier who could make impossible shots under impossible pressure. Command wanted that soldier to stand down. But Elena Cross had never been good at standing down when standing up was the right thing to do. Her watch ticked over. 23:59. 1 minute until Christmas. 1 minute until 12 men died or lived, based on her decision. Below, she saw Thorne check his own watch. Saw him grip his rifle a little tighter. Saw him glance at Mendez, at Drake, at Cole, at 11 other men who trusted him to lead them home, men that command had decided weren't worth the effort. Elena inhaled slowly, exhaled slower. 90 seconds. The enemy fighters raised their weapons. Christmas bells would not ring tonight, but Elena Cross's rifle would sing. The first time Elena Cross killed someone, she'd been 22 years old, Afghanistan. A fighter with an RPG aimed at a convoy carrying medical supplies. She'd made the shot. The convoy continued. 36 children received supplies. Her commanding officer had called it a textbook engagement. That was when following orders and doing the right thing aligned perfectly. The second time she questioned an order was Syria. She'd watched a refugee column for 11 hours. Command wanted her to mark it for an airstrike. She refused. The airstrike was scrubbed. Intelligence later confirmed no enemy fighters were present. She received a reprimand, but the refugees were alive. The third time had cost her everything. Northern provinces, 4 Marines trapped. Command had opened diplomatic channels. The negotiations dragged on. The enemy used the delay to position heavy weapons. Elena had watched it all. Watched the Marines run out of water. Watched them ration ammunition. Command had been explicit. Do not engage. Through her scope, Elena saw an enemy fighter place an explosive charge. The negotiations weren't about peace. They were cover for execution. She took the shot. Then 6 more. The Marines escaped. The investigation was swift. Specialist Cross, the colonel, had said, "Do you understand that military discipline requires following orders?" "Yes, sir." "Then why did you take the shot?" "Because command was wrong, sir." "That's not your choice to make." "With respect, sir, when I'm the one behind the scope, it's exactly my choice to make." "You realize this will end your career?" "Yes, sir." "Was it worth it?" Elena had thought about the 4 Marines, their families. "Yes, sir, it was worth it." Now, on Christmas Eve, command had proven her point again. They'd sent 12 men into a trap. They'd abandoned them. They'd ordered everyone to stand down while SEALs died. They'd proven that sometimes the chain of command was a chain around the necks of the men and women it was supposed to protect. Elena adjusted her scope. Her career was already over. She had nothing left to lose except her self-respect, and she'd lose that immediately if she followed orders tonight. Through her scope, she saw Mendez checking his ammunition. The kid had maybe 40 rounds left, enough for 2 minutes of combat. The enemy had hundreds. The math wasn't complicated. Command knew the math. 12 SEALs versus international political stability. They'd chosen stability. Elena had different math. 18 rounds in her rifle, 43 enemy fighters, 12 Americans who deserved to go home. Her finger rested lightly on the trigger. She thought about the Marine from 2 months ago, Corporal Jackson. He'd sent her a message. "My kids still have a dad because you had the guts to take that shot. That makes you a hero in my book." Jackson's kids had drawn her pictures. Elena kept those drawings in her locker. Tonight, 12 more families would either receive crayon drawings or folded flags. Command had made their choice. Now Elena made hers. She settled fully into her firing position. Body alignment perfect, breathing controlled, mind clear. The enemy commander raised his hand, preparing to signal the attack. Elena's crosshairs found him first. Christmas morning arrived in silence and frost, and Elena Cross stopped listening to anyone but her conscience. 23:59:30. 30 seconds until midnight. 30 seconds until the enemy attacked. 30 seconds until Elena Cross started the most important 90 seconds of her life. She'd run the sequence in her mind 17 times. Each shot planned. Each target prioritized. Each second accounted for. The enemy commander was target 1. 640 meters. Slight elevation advantage. Wind negligible. His death would cause confusion. 3 seconds of chaos while the attack force realized their leader was gone. Target 2. The RPG operator on the western building. 610 meters. The RPG was the greatest threat to the SEALs' defensive position. One rocket could collapse their cover. Eliminating him would remove their worst-case scenario. Target 3. The sniper on the northern rooftop. 700 meters. Elevated position. Thermal signature indicating professional equipment. Difficulty, high. Counter-sniper work was always deadly. Both shooters knew the other existed. First shot decided who went home. Alina had to be first. After that, the sequence became fluid. Targets of opportunity, machine gun positions, grenade teams, 18 rounds. She couldn't waste a single one. 15 seconds. Her breathing slowed further. Heart rate dropped to 48 beats per minute. The world contracted to her scope, her rifle, her targets, the calm. The place where trained snipers live during combat, where time moved differently, where impossible shots became routine. Elena had always been good at finding the calm, even during her first firefight. Tonight the calm was absolute. 23, 59, 50. 10 seconds. The enemy commander lowered his hand. The signal. Across the kill zone, 43 fighters tensed, ready to surge forward. In their defensive position, Thorne shouted orders. His men braced, checked their ammunition one last time, made peace with whatever came next. None of them knew that 6 stories above the battlefield, someone was making different calculations. 2003, 59, 55, 5 seconds. Alina's finger touched the trigger, pressure building slowly, professionally, the way she'd been trained. In her mind, she said goodbye to her career, to her military future, to any chance of avoiding the court-martial. In exchange, she said hello to sleep without nightmares, to looking herself in the mirror, to being the person her mother had raised her to be. Fair trade. 23, 59, 58. 2 seconds. The enemy commander opened his mouth to shout the attack order. Alina exhaled half a breath, held it. 23, 59, 59. 1 second. Her trigger finger completed its press. Smooth. Steady. Perfect. The rifle spoke, suppressed sound like a heavy door closing, barely audible over the wind. 640 meters away. The enemy commander's head snapped back, his body crumpled. The shout died in his throat. Midnight. Christmas morning, 90 seconds started now. Elena didn't watch him fall, already moving to target 2. Muscle memory guiding her sight picture. The RPG operator was raising his weapon, confused by his commander's sudden collapse. Second shot. 610 meters. Wind from the east, 2 knots. Adjustment minimal. The rifle spoke again. The RPG operator dropped. His weapon clattered onto the rooftop, unfired. Threat eliminated. 7.3 seconds elapsed. Target 3. The enemy sniper. This one was looking for her. She could see him scanning rooftops through his own scope. Professional, competent, dangerous. 700 meters, extreme range. He was partly concealed behind a ventilation unit. Elena waited. 3 seconds. He shifted position, searching for the source of the shots. His head cleared the ventilation unit. Third shot. Ballistic compensation for extended range. Wind correction. Elevation adjustment. The rifle spoke. The enemy sniper jerked backward. His rifle fell from his hands. 14.1 seconds elapsed. Halfway through the planned sequence. The enemy still hadn't located her position. The suppressor was working perfectly. Her muzzle flash was minimal. She was a ghost on the rooftop, dealing death from silence. Target 4. Enemy fighter moving toward the SEALs with grenades. 590 meters. Moving target. Difficulty, high. Fourth shot led the target by 18 inches, compensated for movement. The fighter stumbled. The grenades fell from his hands, exploded among his own forces. Chaos bloomed in the kill zone. 19.8 seconds elapsed. Now the enemy knew they were under fire, but they didn't know from where. They scattered, seeking cover, shouting contradictory orders. Perfect. Targets 5 and 6. 2 fighters operating a heavy machine gun position to rake the SEAL defensive line. 600 meters. Stationary. 5th shot. The gunner collapsed. 6th shot. The loader fell backward. The machine gun went silent. 2006.5 seconds elapsed. Elena reloaded. Smooth, fast. 12 rounds left. 63 seconds remaining. She scanned for new priorities. The enemy was beginning to organize. A secondary commander was trying to rally the fighters, pointing at buildings, probably guessing her general location. Target 7, 7th shot. 635 meters. The secondary commander dropped mid-gesture. Leadership vacuum. The fighters broke into smaller groups. Some sought cover. Others fired randomly at rooftops. None of them had her actual position yet. 34.2 seconds elapsed. In the SEAL defensive position, she saw Thorne point upward. He'd figured it out. Someone was providing overwatch, someone unauthorized, someone who didn't care about command's orders. One of the SEALs, Drake, pumped his fist in acknowledgement. They understood. Help had arrived. Time to give them an opening. Targets 8 through 12. Enemy fighters forming a flanking position on the eastern approach. 580 meters. Clustered. 5 shots required. Elena entered the state her instructors called rapid precision. Fast shooting without sacrificing accuracy. Each shot flowing into the next. Breath control. Trigger reset. Sight picture. Fire. 8th shot. 9th shot. 10th shot. 11th shot. 12th shot. 5 targets. 5 hits. The eastern flank collapsed. 48.7 seconds elapsed. 6 rounds remaining. 41 seconds left. The enemy was fully scattered now. No organization. No leadership. Just frightened fighters trying to survive against an invisible threat. But there were still enough of them to overwhelm the SEALs if they reorganized. Elena couldn't let that happen. Target 13. Fighter with radio equipment. Probably trying to call for reinforcements. 605 meters. 13th shot. The radio operator fell. The radio shattered against concrete. 54.3 seconds elapsed. 5 rounds left. 36 seconds remaining. She needed to create a clear exit route for the SEALs. Northeast corridor. The one path that would lead them to relative safety. Targets 14 and 15. 2 fighters blocking the northeast passage. 620 meters. 14th shot. First fighter down. 15th shot. Second fighter down. 61.8 seconds elapsed. 4 rounds remaining. 28 seconds left. The path was clear, but the enemy still had enough fighters to pursue. She needed to discourage pursuit. Target 16. Fighter coordinating what looked like a counterattack. 615 meters. 16th shot. The coordinator fell. The counterattack dissolved before it formed. 68.5 seconds elapsed. 3 rounds remaining. 22 seconds left. Elena scanned the battlefield. The enemy was in full disarray. Fighters were retreating. Some were fleeing entirely. In the SEAL position, Thorne was already moving hand signals. His men understood. They formed up, prepared to extract. But there was still danger. Still threats. Target 17. Fighter with RPG emerging from a doorway. 600 meters. Partially concealed. Difficult shot, but necessary. 17th shot. Aimed for center mass visible through the doorway. The fighter collapsed. The RPG clattered away. 76.9 seconds elapsed. 2 rounds remaining. 13 seconds left. One last threat. One last target. A fighter on a rooftop, far position, trying to set up a machine gun to rake the SEAL's exit route. 710 meters. Extreme range. Wind picking up slightly. This would be the hardest shot of the night. Elena adjusted for everything. Wind. Range. Elevation. The fighter's movement. She exhaled. 18th shot. The longest second of her life. Then the fighter jerked backward. The machine gun tipped over the ledge. Fell 6 stories to the street below. 84.7 seconds elapsed. 1 round remaining. 5 seconds left. Elena kept it chambered. Scanned for any final threats. The battlefield was clear. The enemy was routed. The SEALs were moving. 90 seconds. 18 shots. 17 confirmed kills. 1 weapon destroyed. The kill zone was no longer a kill zone. It was an escape route. Elena watched Thorne's team move through the northeast passage. Professional. Efficient. Still covering each other, despite the chaos. They'd make it. They'd survive. They'd go home to their families. Command hadn't saved them. Elena Cross had. And she'd done it in 90 seconds. The first thing Mendez noticed was the silence, not complete silence. Gunfire still crackled in the distance. Debris still settled from explosions. Wind still howled through broken buildings. But the concentrated fire that had been shredding their position moments ago had stopped. Just stopped. What the hell? Cole started. Then another enemy fighter dropped from a rooftop 200 meters away. No visible wound from this distance. Just suddenly dead. Sniper, Drake said, his voice mixing awe with professional appreciation. Friendly sniper. Thorne scanned the surrounding buildings, looking for the source. Looking for their guardian angel. Command didn't authorize overwatch, he said. Command didn't authorize extraction either. Mendez shot back. The kid's voice carried an edge Thorne had never heard before. Fear burned away by betrayal, replaced with something harder. Another shot. Another enemy fighter down. The enemy was panicking, firing at shadows, hitting nothing. Whoever it is, Drake observed, they're surgical. Every shot counts. Thorne watched the pattern develop. The sniper wasn't just eliminating targets. They were creating a corridor, northeast passage, the one route that offered concealment. The shooter knew exactly what they were doing. Prep to move, Thorne ordered, when we get the signal. A machine gun position exploded in the distance. The gunner fell backward, weapon silent. That's the signal, Drake said. Move out, northeast corridor, covering formation. Thorne's orders cut through the chaos. The team moved as one organism. 12 men who trained together, bled together, who had been abandoned together, and were now fighting their way out together. Kim provided suppressing fire on the western approach. Cole cleared corners. Drake maintained rear security. Mendez moved with the smooth efficiency of someone who'd found his courage in the darkest moment. They flowed through the northeast passage like water finding its level. Above them, unseen, the sniper continued working. A fighter emerged from a doorway ahead, dropped before Mendez could line up his shot. 2 fighters tried to set up a roadblock. Both fell within seconds of each other. Jesus Christ, Cole whispered. How many shots is that? Stop counting and keep moving, Thorne ordered. But he was counting too. Every shot perfect. Every shot necessary. Every shot saving their lives. They reached an intersection. Thorne raised his fist. The team froze. Ahead, An enemy RPG operator was taking position. Perfect angle to destroy the entire team. Thorne started to raise his weapon. The enemy dropped before he could fire. "We need to know who that is," Kim said, his usual calm shaken by the systematic destruction happening around them. "After this, we need to find out who saved us." "After this," Drake corrected, "we buy them a drink." A lot of drinks. They moved through the corridor. 1 block. 2 blocks. The enemy fire was distant now, disorganized. Behind them, the kill zone that should have been their tomb was littered with enemy casualties. Perfect shots, professional work. The kind of shooting that required years of training and absolute cold-blooded precision. "Final corner," Thorne announced. "Beyond this, we've got clear terrain for 300 meters. That's our sprint to the extraction point." If there was an extraction point, if command had changed their minds, if someone had overruled the politicians and decided 12 SEALs were worth saving, Thorne didn't know, but he knew they couldn't stay here. "On my mark. 3, 2, 1. They rounded the corner and stopped, because 200 meters ahead, descending from the night sky, were the most beautiful things any of them had ever seen. Extraction birds, 2 of them, running dark. Coming in fast and low. "Command came back," Mendez said, wonder in his voice. "No," Thorne corrected, his voice hard with understanding. "Someone at command came back. Someone defied orders just like our shooter up there defied orders." The helicopters touched down, rotors screaming, door gunners scanning for threats. "Move, move, move," Thorne shouted. The team sprinted. Combat loads, weapons, gear. Dead weight became nothing when salvation was 200 meters away. Mendez was the youngest. He reached the first bird in 23 seconds flat. Drake, the oldest, made it in 27. Every man accounted for. Every man alive. They piled into the helicopters. Door gunners provided covering fire. Not that they needed it. The enemy was shattered, scattered, destroyed by a ghost on a rooftop. The birds lifted off. Thorne looked back at the kill zone, somewhere in those buildings, on some rooftop. A sniper was watching, making sure they got away, finishing the job command had refused to authorize. "Thank you," Thorne said quietly, knowing the sniper couldn't hear him, saying it anyway. Beside him, Mendez pulled out his helmet, looked at the picture of his girlfriend taped inside. "Merry Christmas, Maria," he whispered. The helicopters banked hard, accelerating, putting distance between the team and the city that almost become their cemetery. All personnel accounted for. The crew chief shouted over the rotor noise. "We are clear and heading home." Home. The word had never sounded better. Drake was already on the radio talking to the base medical team. 12 souls, minor injuries, no urgent care required. "We're bringing everyone back in one piece." Cole leaned his head back against the bulkhead, closed his eyes. His lips moved in silent prayer. Kim was making notes in his tactical log, documenting everything, the ambush, the abandonment, the mysterious sniper who'd saved them all. Thorne watched his men, his brothers. 12 lives that should have ended tonight. 12 men who'd learned a hard truth about the institution they served. And 12 men who owed their lives to someone who decided that orders weren't as important as doing the right thing. The city fell away behind them. Christmas lights still blinked in the ruins, a twisted decoration for a battlefield that had almost claimed 12 more American lives. "Hey," Chief Mendez said, his voice carrying over the noise. "When we get back, we find out who that shooter was, right? We thank them proper." Thorne nodded. "We find them, we thank them, and we make damn sure everyone knows what they did." "Command won't like that," Cole observed. "I don't give a damn what command likes," Thorne said flatly. "Someone disobeyed orders to save our lives. That makes them a hero in my book, and heroes deserve recognition whether command wants to give it or not." The team murmured agreement. The helicopters flew on through the Christmas morning darkness, carrying 12 men who'd stared death in the face and survived. Carrying 12 men who'd learned that sometimes the greatest acts of heroism came from people who refused to follow orders. Carrying 12 men who would spend the rest of their lives remembering the 90 seconds when someone they'd never met decided they were worth saving. Behind them in the city, on a rooftop 6 stories high, Eileen cross-disassembled her rifle with calm, methodical precision. The battlefield was silent now, her work was done, and somewhere in the command center 8,000 miles away, Colonel Blackwood watched it all on his monitors and wondered what the hell he was going to say in the after-action report. The command center had descended into controlled chaos. Colonel Blackwood stood in the center of it, watching multiple screens simultaneously, trying to process what he just witnessed. 18 shots, 90 seconds, 17 confirmed enemy casualties. One unauthorized sniper had accomplished what an entire command structure had deemed impossible. She'd saved 12 lives that Blackwood had already written off. "Sir, the extraction birds have Bravo 4, an officer reported. "All personnel accounted for. They're clear of the hot zone." Blackwood nodded, unable to speak. Relief warred with shame in his chest. Relief that the men were alive, shame that it had taken an act of insubordination to save them. "Sir," the communications officer said carefully, "we need to address the sniper situation." Specialist cross-fired without authorization. She ignored direct orders to stand down. "This is..." "I know what it is," Blackwood cut him off. On screen 12, The thermal signature was moving. Cross was packing up her equipment, preparing to exfiltrate from her position. She had to know what was coming. Court-martial for the Northern Provinces incident. Now this, disobeying orders again during a classified operation while under disciplinary review. The book they'd throw at her would be hardcover. Get me legal, Blackwood ordered. Get me our JAG officer. Now, 5 minutes later, Major Harper appeared on the secure monitor. She looked tired. It was Christmas morning in her time zone too. Colonel, this better be. I need to know what happens when a soldier, under disciplinary review, disobeys orders during an active operation. Harper's expression sharpened. Context, Blackwood explained. The ambush, the political decision to abandon Bravo 4, the stand-down order to all sniper positions, Elena Cross's decision to ignore everything and engage anyway. Harper listened without interrupting. When Blackwood finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Legally, she finally said, this is insubordination during wartime. On top of her existing charges, this could mean years in military prison. Dishonorable discharge, loss of all benefits. The full weight of the UCMJ. Blackwood had expected the answer. It didn't make hearing it any easier. What about mitigating circumstances, he asked, such as she saved 12 lives. Harper's expression didn't change. Lives saved don't negate willful disobedience of direct orders. You know this, Colonel? I know the law, Major. I'm asking about justice. That got a reaction. Harper leaned forward slightly. Are you asking me to find a legal justification for what she did? I'm asking you to tell me how we punished someone for doing the right thing when we were doing the wrong thing. Silence on the line. Then Harper said quietly, officially, we can't. The UCMJ is clear. Orders must be followed. Military discipline requires it. And unofficially, I'd buy that woman a drink. Then I'd lose the paperwork for her court-martial. Then I'd recommend her for a medal she'd never receive, because the operation was classified and the politics are poison. Blackwood closed his eyes. That's what I thought. Sir, may I speak freely? Please. You gave the abort order, Harper said. You told Bravo 4 to hold position while you flew away. You followed your orders perfectly. So did everyone in that command center. We all did exactly what we were supposed to do. Harper paused, her voice carrying an edge Blackwood had never heard before. And we would have let 12 men die because of it. Specialist Cross did what none of us had the courage to do. She said no. She refused. She decided that 12 lives mattered more than her career, her future, her freedom. Another pause. So, yes, legally, we have to prosecute her. But morally, Colonel, that woman is the only person in this entire operation who deserves to wear the uniform. The screen went dark. Blackwood stood in the command center, surrounded by officers who'd all followed orders perfectly, who'd all done their jobs correctly, who'd all been willing to sacrifice 12 SEALs for political expedience. They'd been good soldiers. Elena Cross had been something better. Sir, the intelligence officer said hesitantly, we have a problem. Another one. Bravo 4 is demanding to know who provided Overwatch. They're refusing to debrief until they can thank their shooter personally. Of course they were. Thorne wasn't the type to let heroism go unrecognized. Tell them the operation is classified and all supporting elements are need to know. They're not accepting that answer, sir. Blackwood wasn't surprised. You don't abandon men to die. Then expect them to quietly accept classified explanations when someone saves them. What about the host government? Blackwood asked. Have they responded to the extraction? Radio silence so far. They're probably trying to figure out what happened. Their ambush failed completely. They lost 17 fighters to an unknown shooter. They have no idea how to spin this politically. Good. Let them scramble. Let them try to explain how a carefully planned trap got dismantled by one person in 90 seconds. And our diplomatic channels. State Department is in emergency session. They want answers. They want to know who authorized the extraction after they'd negotiated a stand down. Tell them I authorized it. Sir, that's career suicide, I know. Add it to the list. Blackwood pulled up the video footage from screen 12, watched Elena Cross's thermal signature one more time. The calm, the precision, the absolute professional competence. 18 shots, 17 hits, 1 equipment destruction, a 90-second masterclass in courage. Prepare the after-action report. Blackwood ordered. Full documentation of events. Include everything. The ambush, the political decision to abort, the stand-down order, and the unauthorized sniper who saved 12 lives. Sir, that report will destroy multiple careers, including mine. I'm aware. The officer hesitated. Permission to speak freely, sir? Granted. Why are you doing this? You could bury it, classify everything, protect yourself. Blackwood looked at the screens, at the footage of 12 men climbing into extraction birds. 12 men who should be dead, who would be dead if everyone had followed orders. Because Major Harper was right, he said quietly. Specialist Cross is the only person who deserves to wear the uniform tonight. The least I can do is make sure the truth is on record. Even if it costs you everything. Especially then. The officer nodded and moved to comply. Blackwood pulled up the personnel file one more time. Elena Cross, 29 years old. 8 years of service. Exemplar record until 2 months ago. Sniper qualified. Expert marksman. Multiple commendations. and 2 acts of insubordination that would define her legacy. He wondered if she regretted it, wondered if she'd trade those 12 lives for her career back. He suspected he knew the answer. On screen 12, the thermal signature disappeared. Cross had left the rooftop, gone dark, heading back to whatever fate awaited her. Court-martial, prison, dishonorable discharge, all because she decided that saving lives mattered more than following orders. Blackwood began typing his report. The cursor blinked on the screen. He wrote, "On December 25th at 0 hours, Specialist Elena Cross defied direct orders and engaged enemy forces threatening Bravo 4. Her actions directly resulted in 12 American lives saved. This report recommends the following." He paused, considered, then finished. "Full disciplinary proceedings for insubordination as required by military law, and posthumous Medal of Honor, should Specialist Cross not survive the consequences of doing what command lacked the courage to do." He saved the document, encrypted it, sent it up the chain of command. Then he sat back and waited for his career to end. It seemed like a fair trade. After all, 12 men were going home for Christmas. That had to count for something. The extraction birds touched down at forward operating base Sentinel at 1:42 hours. Christmas morning. Dark, cold, but alive. Thorne was the last man off, making sure every member of his team had boots on friendly ground before he stepped down himself. Old habit. A leader leaves last. The base commander was waiting on the tarmac, Colonel Rodriguez. 42 years old, career infantry officer. She'd commanded FOB Sentinel for 8 months. She'd never lost a team until tonight, when she'd been told she had. "Welcome back," Rodriguez said simply. Her voice was steady, but Thorne could see the tension in her shoulders release. "We were told you were non-recoverable." "We were told the same thing, ma'am," Thorne replied. Rodriguez's jaw tightened. "Debrief in 30 minutes. Get your men checked out by medical first." "Ma'am, we need to know who." 30 minutes, Lieutenant. "Medical first." "That's an order I expect you to follow." "Unlike some orders tonight," the look said. Thorne nodded. His team filed toward the medical tent. They'd all refused medevac treatment in the birds, insisting their injuries were minor. Now the adrenaline was wearing off. Mendez was limping. Drake had a nasty cut across his shoulder. Cole's hands were shaking from cold and stress, but they were all walking, all breathing, all alive. The medics went to work with efficient professionalism, cleaning wounds, checking for shock, offering hot coffee and warm blankets. "You boys are lucky," one medic said to Mendez while bandaging his leg. "Word was you'd been written off. Abandoned. Whatever happened out there? Someone was looking out for you." "Someone was shooting for us," Mendez corrected. "Best damn shooting I've ever seen." The medic paused. "You know who?" "No, but we're gonna find out." 28 minutes later, Thorne's team assembled in the briefing room. All 12 present, all patched up, all ready for answers. Colonel Rodriguez stood at the front with 2 other officers Thorne didn't recognize. One wore YOG insignia. The other had intelligence branch markings. "Gentlemen," Rodriguez began, "what happened tonight is now classified at the highest level. You will not discuss the operation with anyone outside this room. You will not speculate about support element. You will not." "With respect, ma'am," Thorne interrupted, "we're not leaving this room until we know who saved us." Rodriguez's expression hardened. "That's not your concern." "The hell it isn't." Cole stood up. "Someone defied orders to pull our asses out of the fire. Someone risked everything to keep us breathing. We have a right to know who." "You have a right," the JAG officer said coolly, "to follow orders and accept classified operational parameters. We also have a right," Drake added, his voice carrying the weight of 3 kids and a wife back home, "to thank the person who made sure we'd see our families again." The intelligence officer stepped forward. The sniper who provided overwatch was operating without authorization. "Their identity is classified pending legal review. If you pursue this, you'll be interfering with an ongoing investigation." "Investigation?" Mendez's voice cracked with anger. "Into what?" "Into someone doing the right thing while command did the wrong thing." "Stand down, Specialist," Rodriguez ordered. "Ma'am, I'll stand down when someone explains why we're protecting the people who abandoned us and investigating the person who saved us." The room erupted. 12 voices, 12 men who'd survived the UN survivable, all demanding the same thing. Justice. Rodriguez let them vent for 30 seconds. Then she slammed her hand on the table. "Enough. Silence." "I understand your anger," Rodriguez said, her voice carrying a weight Thorne recognized. Command voice, the voice of someone who'd made impossible decisions and lived with the consequences. "I understand that you feel betrayed. I understand that you want answers. But the political situation is complicated. The diplomatic fallout is still developing, and the person who saved you has already paid a heavy price for that decision." "What price?" Thorne asked quietly. Rodriguez hesitated. The JAG officer shook his head slightly. "A warning." Rodriguez ignored it. The shooter was already under disciplinary review for a previous incident. Tonight's actions constitute a second count of willful insubordination during combat operations. The court-martial is scheduled for January 15th. "Court-martial?" Drake's voice was dangerously quiet. They're prosecuting someone for saving our lives. They're prosecuting someone for violating direct orders, the JA officer corrected. Military law is clear. Saving lives doesn't excuse. Don't. Cole's single word cut like a knife. Don't you dare finish that sentence. The JAG officer fell silent. Thorne stood up slowly. Ma'am, we're not leaving this room until we know the shooter's name. We're not going to let someone face court-martial alone for saving us. You don't have a choice, Lieutenant. Yes, ma'am, I do. I choose to refuse to debrief. I choose to refuse all future operations. I choose to make this as difficult as possible until we get answers. Rodriguez stared at him. That's insubordination. Yes, ma'am. Seems to be going around tonight. The other 11 SEALs stood up. Unified, resolved. We're with Lieutenant Thorne, Drake said. Court-martial all of us if you want, but we're not moving forward until we know who we owe our lives to. Rodriguez looked at her JA officer, at her intelligence officer. Then back at the 12 men standing before her. 12 men who'd been betrayed by their own command structure, who'd been saved by someone willing to sacrifice everything for them, who were now willing to throw their own careers away in solidarity. She made a decision. Specialist Elena Cross, Rodriguez said quietly. Sniper, 29 years old, currently awaiting court-martial for a previous incident where she disobeyed orders to save 4 Marines. The room went silent. Tonight, Rodriguez continued. She was ordered to stand down and observe only. She watched you get abandoned. She watched the enemy prepare to kill you, and she decided to ignore every order, every regulation, every threat to her career and freedom. Rodriguez pulled up a photo on the briefing screen. A woman in uniform, sharp eyes, determined expression, the kind of face that didn't back down easily. 90 seconds, Rodriguez said. 18 shots, 17 confirmed kills. She cleared your exit route, eliminated your threats, and made sure you all made it home. Thorne stared at the photo, memorizing every detail, the face of the person who'd saved his life. Where is she now? Mendez asked, confined to quarters pending formal charges. She'll face court-martial for both incidents. Best case scenario, dishonorable discharge. Worst case, military prison. That's bullshit, Cole said flatly. That's military law, the JAG officer countered. Then military law is broken, Drake shot back. Rodriguez held up her hand. Gentlemen, I agree with you, personally, professionally, morally, but I don't make the laws, I enforce them. Then we change them, Thorne said. We testify. We go public. We make sure everyone knows what she did. The operation is classified, the intelligence officer reminded them. You can't go public without violating. So court-martial us too? Thorne interrupted. We'll tell the story from prison if we have to. Rodriguez looked at the 12 men, saw the resolve, understood that they weren't backing down. There might be another way, she said slowly, ma'am. The rules say you can't discuss classified operations publicly, but they don't say you can't submit statements to the court-martial board. Character witnesses, professional assessment, testimony about her actions and their impact. Understanding dawned on Thorne's face. We flood the board with statements. Make it impossible to ignore what she did? I'm not saying that, Rodriguez said carefully. I'm saying that as witnesses to the incident, you have a legal right to provide testimony during legal proceedings. The JAG officer opened his mouth to object. Rodriguez silenced him with a look. Unless you're going to tell me that defendants don't have the right to call witnesses? The JAG officer closed his mouth. We'll bury them in paperwork, Drake said, a grim smile crossing his face. 12 detailed statements. Every shot. Every life saved. Every second she bought us. And we request to testify in person, Cole added. Make them look us in the eye while they try to prosecute her. Rodriguez nodded slowly. That's your right as witnesses. I can't stop you from exercising it. Thorne looked at his team, saw 11 nods of agreement. Then that's what we do, he said. Specialist Cross saved our lives. Now we save hers. It might not work, the JAG officer warned. The law is clear. Insubordination is insubordination. Then we make them earn it, Thorne said. We make them explain to the world why following orders to let Americans die is acceptable. But disobeying orders to save them is criminal. Rodriguez's expression didn't change, but Thorne saw approval in her eyes. Dismissed, she said. Get some rest. It's Christmas morning. You've earned it. The team filed out. But before Thorne left, Rodriguez called him back. Lieutenant. Off the record. Yes, ma'am. Colonel Blackwood in command filed a report tonight. He documented everything. The political decision to abandon you. The stand-down order. Elena Cross's actions. All of it. Why would he do that? It'll destroy his career. Because, Rodriguez said quietly, apparently tonight was a night for people to decide their integrity matters more than their careers. She handed Thorne a data chip. That's a copy of his report. Technically, you shouldn't have it. Technically, I shouldn't have given it to you. But technically, you should be dead right now, so I think we're beyond technicalities. Thorne took the chip. What am I supposed to do with this? Whatever you think is right, Lieutenant. You've earned that privilege. Thorne left the briefing room. His team was waiting outside. Well, Mendez asked. We have work to do, Thorne said, and we have until January 15th to do it. What kind of work? Thorne smiled grimly. The kind that makes sure the woman who saved us doesn't rot in prison for it. They walked through the base together, 12 men who'd left on a routine mission, and come back understanding that the institution they served was flawed, that following orders wasn't always right, that sometimes the greatest heroes were the ones willing to break the rules. Somewhere on this base, Elena Cross was confined to quarters. Alone. Facing the end of her career. Preparing for court-martial. She had no idea that 12 Navy SEALs had just declared war on the system trying to destroy her, but she was about to find out. January 3rd. Elena Cross sat in her quarters, staring at the wall. 10 days since Christmas Eve. 10 days since she'd made the choice that would define and destroy her military career. The walls of her room were bare. Regulations. Her personal effects had been inventoried and secured. Her weapons had been confiscated. Her access credentials had been revoked. She was a soldier in name only now. A prisoner awaiting judgment. The preliminary hearing had been 2 days ago. Closed session. Just her. A military lawyer she'd met once before the hearing. And a panel of 3 officers who'd looked at her like she was something toxic. The charges were clear. Willful insubordination during combat operations. Unauthorized engagement of enemy forces. Violation of direct orders from superior officers. The evidence was ironclad. Radio transcripts. Operational logs. Ballistic reports that matched her rifle to 17 enemy casualties. Her lawyer had tried to mount a defense. Mitigating circumstances. Lives saved. Exceptional situation. The panel had listened with faces carved from stone. Specialist Cross, the senior officer, had said, "Do you dispute any of the factual elements of these charges?" "No, sir." "Do you acknowledge that you received direct orders to stand down and observe only?" "Yes, sir." "And you chose to ignore those orders?" "Yes, sir." Elena had looked the officer in the eye, because following orders meant watching 12 Americans die, sir. "I chose to save them instead." "That wasn't your decision to make." "With respect, sir, when I'm the one behind the scope, it's exactly my decision to make." The same words she'd used 2 months ago. The same defiance. The same absolute certainty that she'd done the right thing. The panel had recommended the case proceed to full court-martial. The date had been set. January 15th. 12 days away. Her lawyer had explained the likely outcome. Dishonorable discharge. Minimum 2 years in military prison. Loss of all benefits. A felony conviction that would follow her for life. "Is there anything else you want to tell the board?" The lawyer had asked. "Anything that might help your case?" Elena had thought about it. Thought about pleading, apologizing, showing remorse. No, she'd said, "I did what I did, I'd do it again. They can do what they need to do." Now she sat in her quarters, waiting. A knock at the door. "Enter," she said. A corporal she didn't recognize stepped in. Young, maybe 22, he looked nervous. "Specialist Cross. You have mail." He handed her a manila envelope. Thick, heavy. Elena took it confused. She hadn't received mail since her confinement. The regulations prohibited most personal contact during court-martial proceedings. The corporal left quickly, like he'd been told to deliver it and disappear. Elena opened the envelope. Inside were 12 letters. The first was from Lieutenant Lucas Thorne. "Specialist Cross," it began. "You don't know me, but you saved my life on December 25th. You saved 11 other lives too. Men with families, futures, people who love them. We were told you're facing court-martial for what you did. This letter is to inform you that all 12 members of Bravo 4 will be testifying on your behalf. We will make sure the board understands exactly what you did and why it mattered." Elena's hands trembled. The second letter was from Specialist Leo Mendez. "I'm 23 years old. I have a girlfriend back home. Her name is Maria. We're getting married in June. I'll get to marry her because you decided I was worth saving. Thank you doesn't cover it, but thank you anyway. I'll be at your court-martial. They'll have to drag me out to shut me up." The third was from Sergeant Sam Drake. "I have 3 kids. Emma is 8. Jason is 6. Sophie just turned 4. They're going to grow up with a father, because you had the courage to do what command wouldn't. I owe you everything. We all do." 11 more letters. 11 more stories. 11 more lives that Elena had saved while destroying her own. At the bottom of the stack was a different document, not a letter, an official report. Colonel Blackwood's after-action analysis. Elena read it slowly. It documented everything. The political decision to abandon Bravo 4, the stand-down order. Her choice to engage anyway. The 90 seconds that changed 12 outcomes. And at the end, Blackwood's recommendation. Specialist Cross should be prosecuted to the full extent of military law for insubordination, and she should be recognized as the most honorable soldier involved in this operation. Elena set down the documents. Her eyes were wet. She hadn't cried in years, not since basic training, not since she'd learned to lock away emotion and focus on the mission. But these letters weren't mission briefing. They were evidence that her choice had mattered, that 90 seconds of disobedience had created futures, saved families, preserved lives. Another knock at the door. "Enter." Colonel Rodriguez stepped in. FOB Sentinel's commander. Elena had met her once briefly during her initial deployment. Specialist Cross. Elena stood at attention. Ma'am, at ease. Rodriguez looked at the letters spread across Elena's desk. I see Bravo 4 found a way to contact you. Yes, ma'am, I don't know how. The corporal who delivered those is Mendez's cousin. Stationed in admin, he thought mail delivery was more important than regulations. Rodriguez's expression was carefully neutral. I'll pretend I don't know about it. Elena nodded, not trusting her voice. The court-martial board has received formal requests from all 12 members of Bravo 4 to testify on your behalf. Rodriguez continued. They've also submitted written statements totaling over 300 pages. Character testimony. Tactical analysis. Personal accounts. They shouldn't. Elena managed. Could damage their careers. They don't care. And honestly, after what happened on Christmas Eve, I'm not sure their careers are their primary concern anymore. Rodriguez moved to the window, looked out at the base. I've been in command for 23 years, specialist. I've followed orders I hated. Made decisions I regretted. Sent people into situations that still keep me up at night. She turned back to Elena. But I've never had the courage to do what you did. To look at an order and say no. To choose conscience over career. Ma'am, I'm facing prison time. I wouldn't call that courage. I'd call it stupidity. You'd be wrong. Rodriguez's voice was firm. Courage isn't doing the easy thing. It's doing the right thing when the cost is everything you have. She moved to the door, paused. The court-martial is in 12 days. The board is required to consider all testimony. Those 12 seals are going to make your case whether you want them to or not. Will it matter? I don't know. The law is clear. You violated orders, twice. But maybe the law isn't the only thing that matters. Rodriguez left. Elena sat down slowly, picked up Mendez's letter again, read the part about his wedding. June. He'd get married in June, because Elena had decided that 90 seconds of shooting was worth more than a lifetime of following orders. She thought about the board, about the officers who'd look at her and see insubordination, about the lawyers who'd argue that military discipline required punishment regardless of outcome. She thought about 12 years in uniform, 12 years of service, of following orders, of being the perfect soldier, all of it ending because she'd chosen to be something more than perfect. She'd chosen to be right. Worth it. Every shot, every consequence, every price, worth it. Elena pulled out a piece of paper, started writing her own letter, not to the board, not to her lawyer, to the 12 men who decided her court-martial was their fight too. Lieutenant Thorne and Bravo 4, she wrote, thank you for your letters. Thank you for your testimony. But please understand, I don't regret what I did. I knew the cost when I took the first shot. I made my choice. Now, please make yours. Don't sacrifice your careers for mine. I did what I did so you could go home, have futures, live lives. Do that, please. It's all I wanted. She paused, then added, Merry Christmas. Even if it's a few days late. You all made it home. That's the only present I needed. She sealed the letter, gave it to the same corporal who delivered hers. He grinned. They're not going to listen. You know those guys are planning something big. I know, Elena said. But I had to try. The corporal left. Elena returned to her quarters, to waiting. To the countdown toward January 15th, 12 days until her court-martial. 12 days until the military decided whether saving 12 lives was worth prosecuting. 12 days until she learned if courage or law would win. Elena suspected she already knew the answer, but for the first time since Christmas Eve, she didn't feel alone. Somewhere on this base, 12 SEALs were planning their own form of defiance. And somewhere in a command center far away, Colonel Blackwood's report was climbing the chain of command, creating problems for everyone who'd made the decision to abandon Bravo 4. The system was broken, but people weren't, and sometimes that was enough. December 24th. 1 year later, the bar was called Murphy's, small place. Veteran-owned, the kind of establishment that understood when 12 men in civilian clothes asked for a private room on Christmas Eve. Lucas Thorne arrived first, force of habit. Leaders arrive early. The room was simple. Long table. 12 chairs. Dim lighting. Christmas decorations hung with military precision. He set down the box he'd been carrying. Inside were 12 items. Cards engraved. Each one marked with a name. Drake arrived next, then Cole. Then Mendez, who looked different now. Confident. Married, his wedding had been in June just like he'd planned. Elena Cross had received an invitation. She hadn't been able to attend. One by one, they arrived, all 12, every member of Bravo 4. They didn't speak much, just nodded. Understood. When everyone had gathered, Thor opened his box. Gentlemen, he said quietly, 1 year ago tonight, we learned some hard truths. We learned that institutions fail, that politics matter more than lives, that sometimes the people we trust to lead us will abandon us when it's convenient. He pulled out the first card, set it on the table. We also learned that one person with courage can change everything. 11 more cards joined the first, arranged in a circle around a photograph in the center. Elena Cross's service photo, in uniform, American flag behind her. The court-martial board reached their verdict on January 15th. Thorne continued. Guilty of insubordination. Guilty of violating direct orders. Guilty of unauthorized engagement. He paused. They sentenced her to 2 years in military prison and dishonorable discharge. The room was silent, but something happened that the board didn't expect, Cole added. The verdict leaked. Some corporal in admin. Maybe. Or maybe Colonel Blackwood's report found its way to a journalist. Who knows? Drake picked up the story when the public learned that a soldier was being imprisoned for saving lives, while command got promoted for abandoning them. People got angry. Congressional hearings, Mendez said. Media and investigations. Protests. The whole thing blew up. Thorne smiled grimly. Turns out most Americans think saving lives is more important than following orders. He pulled out a document. November 18th. Presidential pardon. Specialist Elena Cross. Honorably discharged. All charges expunged. Full benefits restored. Where is she now? Rodriguez asked, stepping into the room. Colonel Rodriguez wasn't officially part of Bravo 4. But she'd fought her own battle, written her own letters, made her own stand. Private security, Thorne said, running protection details for journalists in conflict zones. Getting paid 3 times what the military offered, and she doesn't have to follow orders from people who value politics over people. Good for her, Drake said quietly. Thorne began placing each card on the table. Specialist Leo Mendez. 23, married, father of twins as of last month. Mendez grinned. Sarah and Michael, named after the people who saved my life. Sergeant Sam Drake. 39. 3 kids who still have their father, 4th kid on the way. Drake raised his glass to the woman who made sure my kids have a dad. One by one, Thorne listed them all. 12 names. 12 lives. 12 futures that existed because of 90 seconds on a rooftop. When he finished, he placed a final item in the center. A Christmas ornament. Simple glass, engraved with the number 90. 90 seconds, Thorne said. That's what she gave us, 90 seconds. When she decided we mattered more than her career, more than her freedom, more than her future. He lifted his glass. To Specialist Elena Cross, the best soldier I never had the honor to serve alongside. To Elena, 11 voices echoed. They drank. Outside, Christmas lights blinked on and off. Families celebrated. Children opened presents. The world continued, oblivious to the small gathering of men who'd learned that heroism often wore the uniform of disobedience. Think she knows? Mendez asked. About tonight. About what we're doing. She knows, Thorne said. I sent her the same invitation we all got. Private gathering, Christmas Eve, no obligations. Did she respond? No, but that's okay. She doesn't need our recognition. She knows what she did mattered. They sat in comfortable silence, brothers forged not in combat, but in betrayal and salvation. The door opened. A woman stepped in. Civilian clothes, sharp eyes, a face they all recognized from photographs and testimony. Elena Cross. For a moment nobody moved, then Mendez stood. Then Drake, then Cole. One by one, all 12 stood at attention. At ease, Elena said. A small smile crossing her face. I'm not military anymore. Don't have to salute. You'll always be military, Thorne said. The good kind. Elena moved to the table, looked at the cards, at her photograph. At the ornament marked 90. You didn't have to do this, she said quietly. Yes, we did, Drake replied. We owe you everything. You don't owe me anything. I did what anyone should have done, but nobody else did, Cole said. Command didn't. The politicians didn't. Only you. Elena picked up the ornament, studied it. 90 seconds feels like longer when you're living it. It feels like a lifetime when you're on the receiving end, Mendez said. They stood around the table. 13 people. 12 who'd been saved. 1 who'd done the saving. I heard about the pardon, Drake said. Congressional hearings must have been brutal. They were, Elena confirmed. Lots of angry politicians trying to justify why following orders to let people die is acceptable military conduct. Did you testify? For 6 hours. They asked me if I'd do it again. Elena's smile widened slightly. I told them absolutely, every time, without hesitation. What did they say to that? Nothing. What could they say? That saving American lives is wrong. That following bad orders is right? They had no good answer. Thorne pulled out a chair. Sit with us, please. We're about to do something you should be part of. Elena hesitated, then sat. Thorne raised his glass again. 1 year ago tonight we were left to die. Command abandoned us. Politics valued over people. We learned that the institution we trusted could fail completely. He looked at Elena. But we also learned that one person with a rifle and a conscience could be worth more than an entire chain of command. To Elena Cross. All 12 said together. The soldier who taught us what courage really means. Elena's eyes were wet. You're going to make me cry, she said. Good, Drake said. You earned the right. They talked through the night. Stories from the last year. Mendez's twins, Drake's 4th kid, Cole's promotion, the rebuilding of trust in a military that had proven itself fallible. And Elena's new life. Private security. Protecting people who reported truth in dangerous places. A job where her skills mattered. and her judgment was trusted. Do you miss it? Thorne asked. The military? Elena thought about it. I miss the good parts, the mission, the purpose, the people. She looked around the table. People like you, but not the orders, never the orders, not when following them meant abandoning what's right. At midnight, they stepped outside. The Christmas lights of the city spread before them. Families celebrating, lives continuing. A world that had no idea how close it had come to losing 12 of its protectors. Merry Christmas, Mendez said. Merry Christmas. They all echoed. Elena looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there in buildings and bases around the world, soldiers were following orders. Most of those orders were good, necessary. Right, but some weren't. And when the bad orders came, Elena hoped someone would have the courage to say no, to choose conscience over career, to decide that saving lives mattered more than protecting institutions. Thank you, Thorne said quietly. For everything. Elena nodded. Thank you for making it matter. They stood in the cold December air. 13 people bound together by 90 seconds that had changed everything. Next year they'd gather again, and the year after, and the year after that. 12 families would grow. 12 lives would continue. 12 futures would unfold, all because one woman had looked orders and decided they were worth less than the lives they threatened. Back in her apartment, Elena still kept the crayon drawings from Jackson's kids, the Marine from 2 months before Christmas Eve, the first time she'd chosen disobedience over obedience. Now she'd add the cards from tonight. 12 reminders that courage wasn't about following orders. It was about knowing when to break them. The group dispersed, slowly, handshakes, hugs, promises to stay in touch. Elena was the last to leave. She stood alone on the street looking up at the Christmas lights. 90 seconds, that's all it had taken. 90 seconds to prove that one person could make a difference, that rules weren't always right, that sometimes the greatest act of service was disobedience. She thought about the young soldiers still serving, still following orders, still trusting the chain of command, and she hoped that when they faced their moment, when they had to choose between orders and conscience, they'd remember stories like hers. That they'd know courage meant saying no when no was the right answer, that they'd understand institutions exist to serve people, not the other way around. Elena walked into the Christmas night free, honorable, at peace. 12 men were home with their families tonight, and somewhere in Washington, politicians and generals were still trying to explain why that had required a presidential pardon instead of a medal. Elena didn't need the medal. She had something better. She had 12 lives saved, 12 families whole, 12 futures secured. She had 90 seconds that mattered more than a lifetime of obedience, and she had the knowledge that when it counted most, when everything was on the line, she'd made the right choice. Merry Christmas to the 12, and Merry Christmas to anyone else who'd ever faced that impossible decision and chosen courage over compliance. The world needed more of them. God knows the military did, too. Christmas lights blinked in the darkness. Somewhere, a bell rang, celebrating, calling faithful to prayer or family to dinner. The sound carried across the city, across the year, across the distance between who we're told to be and who we choose to become. 90 seconds, that's all it takes to change everything, or to save everyone. On a rooftop somewhere, maybe another soldier faced another impossible choice. Another set of orders that made no sense. Another moment where following rules meant abandoning right. And maybe, just maybe, they'd remember the story of Elena Cross, the soldier who spat on orders and saved 12 lives in 90 seconds. The story would spread in bars and bases, in whispers and warnings, in classified reports and congressional hearings. Some would call it insubordination, disobedience, a dangerous precedent. Others would call it courage, honor, the truest form of service. The debate would continue. The arguments would rage. The system would defend itself. But 12 Navy SEALs would go home every Christmas, and that was answer enough. The end.